Yeah, be great. Just take some and hand them back. So if you were here last time, we were actually into Judges chapter 13. We only took on a little bit of it, not completely. But in some ways we did. We kind of discussed what it was, what it's about. But I want to go through it, and this time we'll do it some justice. I need one of those sheets too myself, actually. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, I wrote it, so I shouldn't have that big of a problem about it. Got another one? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll be nice and I'll share.
I need this for my spatial awareness. Okay. I hate standing up at that podium. So you guys are. Oh, wait a minute. Am I in the wrong spot? Okay.
No, you're in the right.
So we're going to be talking. I handed out the sheet on the angel of the Lord, an incredible figure throughout the Old Testament. And the New, and for most of us, you guys here, I think have got kind of a grasp. If I asked you, in this passage in Judges, who are we looking at? We're looking at Jesus Christ. So it will come. I feel like I'm speaking to a graduate class in terms of you guys have already been there, done that type thing. So I'll just repeat some of the things that you are already aware of. For those of you who don't get into this, please feel free to just jump in and say, hey, what are you talking about? Angel of the Lord will do second, and for the second part of the class, and then we'll do that for about 15 minutes. At the end, we'll wrap up with that. But then I want to talk a little bit about the parents of Samson. This chapter 13 is the introduction to what we consider to be one of the wildest, craziest figures in the Old Testament. And yet he's considered to be a righteous man. That's the crazy. We were talking about this today. If you haven't had, some of you guys, if you haven't had a chance, you really need to try to come. I know a lot of you work, but a lot of you need to come to our Wednesday morning Bible study. And we're going through 2 Peter right now. It's great. We also have a women's class that's going on at the same time. So it's for couples, and just really consider it as something that's great. We were doing 2 Peter, and again, Samson was brought up as being kind of a wild and crazy guy, but by the same token, the Bible speaks of him a couple of times as what's called a righteous man. I'm not going to get into Samson, but I do want to get into his parents tonight and see where they're from, and to encourage those of us who want to, I guess, emulate these two. I think these two have are quite a remarkable couple. And we don't get into too much. This first part of Judges 13 doesn't really get into their interaction when Samson goes wacky. But I just by learning about them a little bit today, we're going to see that they're really unique people. They were around during the time of the Judges, which was at this particular time, Israel had just gone bad again, and they were given to the Philistines. Am I messed up? Oh, okay, thank you. I'll try to remember to use it. Part of my problem is that I got new glasses, or trying to get new glasses. Okay, so let's go through. Let's start in chapter 1 and chapter 13. We'll go to verse 1 to recognize that we'll just read it. It says, again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for how long? 40 years. We see a lot of cycles going on in 40 years. How many generations could we say that is? Some people say, well, that's a generation. Some people say, well, that's half a generation. Some people say is every time you have a baby, that's a generation. So how many children are born throughout that 40 years and who will grow up living in that situation under a very repressive pagan operation known as the Philistines? All of it was brutal. It was always going on, and you're living in a country where you are basically a minority, and you're a hated minority. To understand that the Jewish people were the invaders, and many times they did the things that they did that was not good in the sight of the Lord, and yet they were surrounded by a culture that was basically hell-bent on wiping them out, if not physically, because the fear of the Lord was something that, if we ever get into that study, you'll find that a lot of people had a problem. They didn't have a problem fighting it, but they sure were scared of Yahweh. And they knew as nations that they could be destroyed very quickly. And these people called the Jews, who were living amongst them, were potentially extremely dangerous. That's gone down all the way through history, even up to today, to recognize that in many ways, the nations and the forces behind the nations are terrified of Israel. And in these ancient times, they were terrified of the Jews. Why? Were they really frightened of a minority of people? Not really. They could probably have them for a snack lunch. That wasn't the issue. Who were they really representing? Who had said, you are my people? Exactly. And Yahweh is not something you mess with, or someone you mess with. And so the tension between the Philistines, in this particular case, and the Jews, the Israelites, is palpable every day. There's always this tension. And yet we have a situation here where you have a couple who are seem to me to be a terrific couple. So I'll keep reading. Again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. Now there was a certain man from Zohar of the family of Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. Manoah, again, his name means rest. His name is Noah. Noah. Noah's name means rest. So I noticed that when you look at these, this is one of those times where we're in the middle of a problem with the nation, and yet you have this character called Manoah. And his wife was barren, and she had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, indeed now, you are barren and you have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. So here we have the first appearance of this strange, I call it an apparition, this strange personage called the angel of the Lord. And as we go through this paper, we're going to find out that this angel of the Lord is basically Yahweh in physical, visible form. We have two Yahwehs that's presented to us basically throughout the Old Testament and even into the New. We have, and again, I know I'm talking to people who've gone through this before, but I'm just repeating it because it's something that is so important that we get a handle on it. We have one Yahweh, who's the Father. He is invisible. You cannot comprehend him. The Latins have a statement. They say, finitum no copax infinitum. The finite can't grasp the infinite. You have no way of grasping onto him. He's the one that has so much energy and so much power that to look on him, or to even think you could look on him, you couldn't encompass his whole being, and you would be instantly fried. If you've got this, the idea that you can't make something, if you have X number trillions of suns, the one who made them all has to be more powerful than them. The radiation that would come off of the Father would be just, you would cease to exist in an instant. So you can't see him. They knew this. And yet they had this strange situation that Manoah is going to go through when we finish up with this part, is he's going to say, I have seen the Lord, I have seen God, and I'm alive. And yet we know this concept of two powers, or two personages. One, that God is unimaginably powerful. We can't grasp him. And yet at the same time, he is one who understands that situation, loves us. And so what does he do? He does what's called condescending. He comes down and he takes on the form of a human. In the Old Testament, we would call that a Christophany or a theophany, where Christ is seen, or Christ is visible, or Yahweh is seen, or Yahweh is visible. And the usage of the words are interplayed to the degree where we recognize that they're the same person. And this is one of the key areas that we get this concept of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Is the Trinitarian concept comes in many ways from that idea of you have a visible God, you have an invisible God. Same guys, but God the Father manifests, comes down, shows himself to his people, and that's the way he can communicate with them. Philip said what? You have seen me, you have seen the Father. And that was always a hard point for the Pharisees. The Jews themselves, in first century, we know, prior to the writings that we see, they, in a sense, understood this concept of what's called the binitarian God, more than one manifestation of God, I guess I would say. So do we understand that part of it? It's critical, I think, for us as Christians to understand who we are dealing with. Because many of the people who call themselves Christians or sects, Jehovah's Witnesses, some of the other sects and families that you may have, people who disagree with you, the one way group, there's a oneness, I think is they're called, they don't accept the concept of the Trinity. They can't get a hold of that idea. And it's important to understand that the ancient Jews did get this. They did understand that. And yet today, one of the biggest problems that we have are peoples like Jehovah's Witnesses who say, no, Jesus was a creation or a concept, a created being. So that idea of what Manoah is going to go through is he's going to see this God and say, wow, I'm supposed to be dead. His wife, in this sense, has a lot more understanding of this. So we should listen to our wives, is the story here. All right. Pardon?
I'm just saying, pay attention.
You were hitting him. I saw. Okay. Say what?
You can play it back for ballads on tape.
She learned that one a long time ago. Okay. And the angel of the Lord appeared. All right, I'm on 3. I'm going to jump to 4 now. He says, now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So he's right there being told, she's being told, that this Samson is going to start the process of winning back and being what we call a judge in Israel, one that will come in and take care and basically rescue. In a sense, people would call him a Messiah. In some days, the Messiah David was a Messiah. Jesus is the Messiah. But Samson, these are this idea of someone coming to my rescue, someone coming to the rescue of the nation. So we talked about Nazarite last week briefly. A Nazarite. Anybody want to give me a rundown? Joe, give me a rundown of the Nazarites.
In what aspect is the responsibility?
Pardon?
The responsibility?
Yeah. What did they? You gave a great answer last week.
They just believed that they couldn't have anything to do with grapes in any way, even the skin of the grape, and they couldn't drink any strong drink. The three things are basically that, and then they can't cut their hair, and they can't be around a carcass of any kind, dead animal.
Dead animals. And Harry, you want to add something to that? Did you want to add something to that? Okay, so the idea, one of the reasons why this is kind of an unusual Nazirite is that Nazirites are usually not. They take a vow for a period of time. And a Nazirite can be a man or a woman. And so what the idea is that they separate themselves. It's the idea, we call it sanctification, but it's the idea I'm separating myself from the day-to-day issues, and I'm going to either fast or I'm going to keep these things sacred to the Lord. These will be the things that I will do. And that will happen for 30, 60, 90 days. But at the end of the vow, you go back to where you were. On the other hand, we have Samson and we have Samuel that will do this for life. This will be their role for life. And John the Baptist. And that whole thing is to say is, in a way, dedication of a child. I'll put it another way to you. Dedication of a child is something that goes on even to today. When you have a baby, some of the denominations do what's called a dedication service. And the parents say, I will do this with this child. This I will, Hannah was another, well, Samuel. So the idea of saying, I'm, as a mother or a father, I'm going to bring my child up to the priest, and I'm going to say, or the pastor, and I'm going to dedicate that child to the Lord. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to be a Samson, but it does mean that they're going to do their best as parents to dedicate that child. Some people get into the idea of doing baptism, which is a concern for many of us. Because we hold that baptism needs to be something that you consciously are aware of. And an infant isn't at that place yet. Some other groups say, well, if we don't baptize them and they die in birth or die just afterward, they'll go to hell. Well, there's nowhere in the Bible that talks about that. And yet these are traditions that have been shown and been in the churches for years. So anybody here ever been baptized as a child? My hand's up. Yep. I still feel the water running down my neck. When I was I think it was like 4 or 5, and my dad made me get a suit and made me cut my hair, which he did anyway. And then when the pastor put the water on the little tub, you could feel the water coming down the back of my neck. I still do. But then when we went to join a Baptist church, that was thrown out. You're gonna get dunked, and that was that too. So just throwing in some Emilio stuff. You don't care about that. All right, let's go on. Verse 6. So the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God. Very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. Now drink no wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, O my Lord, please let the man of God whom you come to us again and teach us what we shall do for the child who will be born. I think their reaction is really quite wonderful as far as you get this aberration and the husband says, you saw what? And doesn't buy it for a second. On the other hand, he accepts that idea. He trusts his wife. His wife trusts the angel, which is also, something that I think is wonderful, that they were actually in a position to where their faith must have been strong enough and realized what was happening to them. Any thoughts on mom and dad being trustworthy in very difficult times? Okay. And God listened to the voice of Manoah Manoah had said, hey, Lord, come and teach us. He says, and the Lord listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again as she was sitting in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Then the woman ran in haste and told her husband and said to him, look, the man who came to me the other day has just appeared to me. So Manoah arose and followed his wife. And when he came to the man, he said to him, are you the man who spoke to this woman? And he said, I am. Manoah said, now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work? So I'll pause there. We had talked last week about, we caught the idea of when the angel is confronted and asked, are you the man who spoke to me? And he says, the I am. That is not, scholars look at that a couple of ways. That particular word is not the exact same word that was said to Moses at Sinai. It's not the same exact word. But many people look at who this particular theophany or Christophany is and say, it is. So I don't know if you have opinions on that, but I think it was very striking that we see that use of that word, or at least the same phrase. So sometimes you'll hear a scholar say, well, that's not the exact same word. Well, we are talking about, I look at it and I basically say, get the whole context of what's being said here. Get the whole context of who this personage is. It is the Lord. It is the YHWH. It is the Yahweh. It is the Christ. The second person, the second power in heaven. And then the angel said, I'm at 13, he says, so the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor may she drink wine or similar drink, nor eat anything unclean. All that I commanded her, let her observe. I think it's also interesting that both her and her husband are willing to get into this. They're willing to obey. And one of the key structures that we have in not only Jewish life, but in Christian life, is the idea of that the parents are to obey the commands of the Lord. They're to teach their children. They're to honor their kids. They dedicate their kid, but then they get actively involved in the lives of their children. And too often, how often do we see parents backing off, nowadays especially, from this idea of being actively involved in your kid's life? The classic was, don't do as I do, do as I say. You know, that kind of an idea. So it's impressive to me that Manoah and his wife, and by the way, we don't know her name. If we did, I would say it. But I think that's interesting too. But that idea of saying, here we have two people who are without child, and yet they have been told they're going to have a kid, and what do they ask for? They're not saying, oh, I don't believe that. They're not like Sarah. They didn't laugh. They didn't mock the situation. There wasn't any time that we see of where there's unbelief. They accept what the angel said, and I think that's really commendable. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, I'm in 15 now, please let us detain you, and we will prepare a young goat for you. So they're inviting him for a snack lunch, which is kind of cool. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, though you detain me, I will not eat your food. But if you offer a burnt offering, you must offer it to the Lord, to Yahweh. For Manoah did not know he was the angel of the Lord. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, what is your name? That when your words come to pass, we may honor you. So he's being challenged again. And the angel of the Lord said to him, why do you ask me my name, seeing it is wonderful? And we think of Isaiah 9. Who is he? He is wonderful. He's the mighty God. He's the everlasting Father. He is the Prince of Peace. That is, for a Christian, we grab that so fast and so hard. We've been taught, and we just praise God for that. Here we are seeing something happening 700-800 years before Jesus is ever born. It is the same thing that we see in the book of Isaiah. It's the same thing we see in the book of Hosea. It's the same thing we see in multiple places. The constant theme is embedded in the text and follows us all the way through. We can't escape it if we read it. Yes?
So, since you're talking about the wonderful name, you have a little bullet point that says, there's a wonderful name, and then Pele.
Say it louder.
There's a wonderful name, and then Pele, or Pele.
Pele.
What does that mean?
That means wonderful.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Yep.
It's Monday.
Oh, that's fine. I threw it in there because it was. I just want you to know that it's really a word, and so. But the idea again is that he is telegraphing to us. He's telegraphing to Manoah. He's telegraphing to his wife. He's telegraphing to all of us that a Messiah, a Savior, someone who is going to liberate you, who's going to rescue you, is on the way. And the fact that it is a supernatural birth is really something special. And we see that a number of times in the great personages that we see that follows. We must always bear in mind with Samson is that in the end, he does what is the foundational requirement for this, for a person who is going to rescue his people. He repents. He asks for God's help. At the lowest point in his life, when he is totally, he got a haircut, and his life is a mess, he's about to be killed, is when he repents. His eyes have been gouged out. He's a mess. He's at his weakest. And that idea of when we are weak, that's when he is strong. Amen. And that's what we see, I think we see, constantly played out in the lives of Israel. It is only when they are weak that God uses them. It's when they are strong, whether it's in the book of Hosea, which we're studying, by the way, on Sunday mornings, and you are all required to be there, but because Harry's teaching Sunday. So the idea is that to grab this idea that we are weak, he is strong. When we make the dumb mistake of everything is good and everything is great, and everything is wonderful, everything's cool, that's when we're in trouble. That's when we're being preyed upon. So, okay. Thank you. I thought it was 19, but then I wasn't sure. So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it upon the rock to the Lord. And he did a wondrous thing when Manoah and his wife looked on. It happened as the flame went up toward the heavens from the altar. The angel of the Lord ascended in the flame of the altar. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. What? Yes. And there's a lot of times in the book when the people are faced, Moses, whoever they are, when we're faced even with the personage of the visible Yahweh, we start kissing pavement. We hit the ground. And it's one of those things that happens to us because we're undone, as the prophet says. We are weak because we need to be weak. Okay? So when the angel of the Lord appeared to no more Manoah and his wife, then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. He knew that this was the you want to call him the binatarian God, you want to call him the second power in heaven. He knew he saw the Father. And he knows the penalty for that, by the way, because he makes this statement. And Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die because we have seen God." Manoah tells us what's going on. And I love what she says. She's the brains of the family. She's the one that's calm. Yeah. What? Yeah.
That's good to know. That gives me hope.
Okay. But his wife said to him, "If the Lord had desired to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands. Nor would he have shown us all these things, nor would he have told us such things as these at this time." So the woman bore a son. So she's basically saying, coming back and saying, "Hey, dude, this is something that is going to happen, and you're not going to die for it. So that was again, one of the admirable things. And he believes her. And he buys into it, too. I think that in some ways, I won't say they're the perfect couple, but they're pretty close. Samson had good parents, to put it another way. He came from good stock, the way I look at this. So the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move upon him at Manasseh, Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. So that's chapter 13. We see this interplay of a righteous family from which the Messiah at that time would come. We know that because he isn't God, he isn't Christ, that he is going to sin during his lifetime. And yet God will still rescue his people. God will keep his promise. He promised this to his mom, that this was going to happen, that Israel would be rescued, would be freed from the Philistines. And so that occurred. And whether it was 40 years or not, I'm not sure, because the scholars kind of go back and forth. And I don't know whether you had any insight on that, Pastor, or you had anything, but the idea is we're talking not just quick and dirty. We're talking a 40-year span of what we're looking at, a minimum of 40 years. And, no, actually a maximum of 40 years. So it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 years, however many generations it was. Not the point. The point being is that God has intervened personally into these folks' lives. And he continues to do so. And he will do it whether he does it when they are weak, he does it when they are strong. It is a constant interplay. Some people have kind of written the Jews off and Israel off because their leadership rejected Jesus. That was always planned. That was known. God is what is called outside of time. For him, time, when he does creation, he creates time at the same time. He is outside of it. So he knows past, present, future. He knows what would have been, what could have been. And he makes decisions based on that. It's called his sovereignty. He owns time. He knows it. He manipulates it. He creates it. And so when he says in the book of Zechariah that Pastor Tim was going through last year, that these things are going to occur to Israel, and we see them starting to play out after 1948, all the way through up to today. More attacks went on today, I guess, and the United States started bombing again with Israel. We're seeing this going on and on and on. We're seeing the entire globe. It was I heard a report from Vice President Vance that said that President Trump is he's the remaining and only head of state that supports Israel. That's a pretty heavy statement. That is literally right, and it's from the vice president's mouth. And that's right out of Zechariah. We're so close on that. So I'll leave it at that. Any comments? Next week, you go to the next chapter, 14. Yes?
What do you mean by so close? We're so close to what?
We're so close to what I believe as the end days, the ends of times. I'll put it better. We're so close to the return of Christ. Whether it's going to be how he's going to manipulate, whether it's the pre-trib rapture, but I look at it from the standpoint of the promises made to Israel is that there is going to be a renewed nation of Israel that will be called the kingdom of God, the kingdom of David, with Jesus on the throne, sitting in Jerusalem, ruling the planet. That's what I see. Pardon? During the 1,000 years. Yep.
Maybe this is too much of a question, but the war in Ezekiel 38, 39. Do you think that will happen before the rapture or after?
It's a great question. You want the great answer? No, say. I don't know. But it's one of those things that you look at. If you think in terms of what Zechariah says, Zechariah says that every nation will come against them, from the north, the south, the east, and the west. If you look at the Gog-Magog, the Ezekiel, if we want to equate that to the Ezekiel 38, they both define it, and again, I'm going to be a little messy here, but that those are nations coming at them from the north, the south, the east, and the west. In other words, all nations. And so they sometimes get conflated. Whether it's going to happen before or after, I just don't know. I heard good answers on multiple sides, but don't know. Sorry.
Where do you think the United States will fit into all that?
I don't think it'll be around. I personally, I don't think it will be. I don't see it anywhere involved in the biblical model. The primary focus of the text of the Bible is in the Mediterranean, what's called the Levant area. But we do see things coming in from Western world, if you want to call it that. But I don't see the United States there. You? I don't know. I think there's good evidence. There's good speculation that if the rapture takes place on a pre-trib basis, and there's no Christians in the United States, that there'll be a complete destruction of the United States. But we're seeing, in a sense, that happening right now. We are seeing the United States. I don't know how many of you follow what's going on in Texas or what's going on in other parts of the country, where we see in Minnesota. Anybody from Minnesota? Anybody from Texas? The populations of the pagans are getting more and more. We'll call them Muslims. And they are taking over more and more areas. They're actually getting into running the governments. And Southern California, it's already happening. So do we see the Islamization of the United States? I think so.
I was listening to Christ in Prophecy a couple days ago, and Tim Moore, he said, one of the two main guys, he said that every time he gets on an airplane, and he travels quite a bit.
Yes, he does.
There's just more and more and more people from other countries that are willing to maintain their same garb and not be part of the American way of life.
Yes. 30 years ago, there was a gentleman, I don't know that any of you ever saw him, he's a Jew from Israel. He used to travel through this area. He's in Israel again. His name is Avi Lipkin, and he's on Tim Moore's show, and he's on a lot of these other shows. He would say that basically this time is coming where, and this was 30 years ago, where the nations of Islam would buy and purchase great swaths of land, but mostly what they would do would be go after the colleges. They would give huge college endowments, start up Islamic studies, and thereby start to educate the people. It's a long-term plan. This was documented a long time ago. So I really encourage you guys to find out people like Tim Moore and others. Do I think that... do I see, I'll put it this way, should we be focused totally on the prophetic word? I don't think so. I do believe that we should know it and we should expect it, because we need to be able, as believers, we need to be strong in our faith and our theology, and then to be able to answer people who ask questions. Sometimes the answer is I don't know. But sometimes the answer is, do I have sufficient reason to say that I believe that a pre-tribulational rapture is going to happen? Yeah. Does everybody agree with me? Absolutely not. But I know why I believe that. And to be able to know that is something that each of us has to deal with. Our faith is not just a simple thing. It is global. It is something that happens over every aspect of our lives. So, anything else?
Because that's like a 24-hour Bible seminary. There's excellent Bible studies of many different denominations, day and night, Monday through Sunday.
There are so many good stations out there. There's so many good people. There's a lot of quacks, too.
So in terms of education...
In terms of what?